Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a question that comes up a lot. Why could one income often support a family comfortably back then, while today, even with two incomes, many households really struggle?
Yeah, it's a big one. And the materials we looked at really paint a picture of some major economic shifts happening over decades.
We've got some great source material here to help us unpack it. We're
Mm.
aiming to sort of piece together the key drivers.
Exactly. Things like wages versus living costs, housing, education, healthcare. It's all connected.
And childcare too, right? Plus, job security, wealth shifts, debt. Quite a list. Let's jump in.
Okay.
So first up, wages versus the cost of living. The sources point to the 1970s as a kind of turning point.
Right. Before that, generally speaking, wages tended to rise along with productivity gains.
Yeah, like if the economy grew, workers saw more of it in their paychecks. A single earner, maybe in a factory or union job.
Could often actually support a whole family. There was this link, between getting more done and getting paid more.
But that started to change, didn't it? Productivity kept going up.
But wage growth for your average worker, it sort of flattened out or didn't keep pace.
Meanwhile, the cost of basic stuff started climbing a lot.
Precisely. That divergence is key.
And nowhere is that clearer than housing, maybe. The sources talk about a time with, like, smaller homes, cheaper land.
Yeah, and maybe fewer strict regulations in some areas. Homeownership felt more attainable on one salary.
Definitely. It didn't eat up such a massive slice of the budget.
Which freed up money for other things, right? Now, especially near job hubs, housing costs are just huge.
Even for two incomes sometimes, it just swallows everything.
Makes it really hard to save or, get ahead.
Okay, then there's education. College costs. Big difference there, too, based on the material.
Oh, absolutely. It
What-
wasn't the huge financial undertaking it is now. Lower tuition, more state support,
Right.
sometimes practically free.
Now it's often a one-way ticket to, well, significant debt for a lot of people.
And that has knock-on effects, right? For social mobility, future earnings, it's a big hurdle previous generations didn't face quite so starkly.
And sticking with costs, healthcare.
Yeah, another big one. Since the 80s especially, costs have just skyrocketed.
Even if you have insurance, the deductibles, the premiums, what you pay out of pocket.
It can be crippling. It's a much bigger and honestly less predictable expense than it used to be. Eats away at that purchasing power.
And, okay, something that's changed structurally. With more dual-income households being the norm, you've got childcare costs.
That's a huge factor.
Yeah.
If both parents work, someone needs to care for the kids. That's a major budget item that wasn't there for many single-income families in the past.
A necessary expense, but a significant one.
Definitely adds another layer of financial pressure.
Let's talk jobs themselves.
Yeah.
The sources mention this era of, like, stable jobs, good benefits, pensions,
Yeah.
especially union jobs.
Right, that mid-century model. More stability, defined benefit pensions were more common.
Now, it feels like more contract work, gig economy stuff,
Yeah.
fewer guarantees.
And pensions have largely shifted to 401ks, right?
Yeah.
Which puts much more of the risk and responsibility on the individual worker.
Less security overall.
Generally, yeah, that stability has eroded for many.
The material also brings up broader policy shifts starting around the 80s. Things like tax changes, deregulation, weakened unions.
And how these might have contributed to wealth concentrating more at the top.
So the overall economy might be bigger, but the average worker's slice hasn't grown proportionally.
That's the argument presented, yeah. That a smaller share of the gains flowed to typical workers, making it harder to achieve that middle-class comfort.
Now, the sources do touch on consumer debt and maybe lifestyle inflation.
Mm-hmm.
People spending more.
Which is part of the picture, sure. Access to credit is different now.
But they also stress that you can't just blame lifestyle choices, right?
Exactly. It's crucial to see that the fundamental costs of basics, housing, healthcare, education, have risen so dramatically. It's not just about wanting bigger TVs.
It's needing more just to cover the essentials.
That's the core issue highlighted.
Okay, so pulling it all together, it's not just one thing. It's this complex mix. Stagnant wages for many, skyrocketing costs for essentials.
The added burden of childcare for dual-income families, shifts in job security and benefits.
And these broader economic policies potentially leading to more wealth concentration.
It really is a confluence of factors that have reshaped the economic landscape for families compared to, say, 50 or 60 years ago.
A very different world financially.
The sources lay out a compelling case for how interconnected these trends are.
So that leaves us with something for you, the listener, to think about. Looking at all these pieces, wages, costs, jobs, policies, which one do you feel has hit your financial reality the hardest?
And maybe thinking beyond that, what kinds of changes, big or small, do you think could actually start to address some of these deep-seated issues?
Definitely food for thought.
Ah,
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.